All people of good faith agree that what happened to George Floyd was heinous and depraved. It was murder. But that's not what we're seeing on our violent streets. We're not seeing outrage really expressed about that. And that's not what the criminals and the domestic terrorists are perpetrating as they use Mr. Floyd's killing to try to murder America. Earlier in the day, Floyd's own brother issued a call for peace.
If I'm not over here messing up my community, come on. Then what are y'all doing? What are y'all doing? Y'all doing nothing. Because that's not going to bring my brother back at all. It may feel good for the moment, just like when you drink. But when it comes down, you're going to wonder what you did.
But this isn't what Antifa wants or cares about, and it's not what other radical elements want. They want war. They want to tear down what took us almost 250 years to build, literally and figuratively. The president tonight reaffirmed his duty to defend the Constitution.
My first and highest duty as president is to defend our great country and the American people. I swore an oath to uphold the laws of our nation, and that is exactly what I will do.
Now, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, whose nursing homes became COVID killing fields, said he's not going to seek and doesn't want the president's help.
I was shocked at the force they used to move the protesters, who could not have been more peaceful, calling out the American military for a photo opportunity. These are young people who still have idealism and want to make this nation better, and that's a good instinct, and it should be encouraged.
It should be encouraged. We've been showing footage all night of what they're doing throughout Manhattan. And by the way, what we saw, some of what we saw is what I saw last night up close and personal in Washington, D.C. The protest wasn't very focused on the heinous injustice committed against George Floyd. Yeah, there were a few signs and there were a few George Floyd T-shirts worn, but there were no candlelight vigils, there was no singing and embracing. People were taking selfies in front of Secret Service agents whom they were mocking and swearing at, and in some cases, spitting at. I'm not sure what any of that accomplished. But the violent and vengeful elements were focused on creating chaos, terror, and fear across America. So don't you dare lie to the American people by saying that any of this had anything to do, in its violent core, with George Floyd. From what his family says, George was not that kind of person. He wouldn't do what these people are doing tonight. Peaceful protests are usually held, as I said to Hannity, during the day. After all, we know that because under the dark of night, under the cover of darkness, we can't see who's throwing what, who's starting what fires, like the one that I saw as we were leaving the scene at the historic St. John Church. Now, we walked to the car seeing these historic hotels, beautiful buildings, boarded up, graffiti everywhere. I felt like I was back in Iraq in 2006 in February, except I actually felt a lot safer on the streets of Baghdad than I did at times in D.C. last night. Now, the aim of these criminal enterprises, including Antifa, but not limited to Antifa, is to undermine confidence in our institutions of government at all levels, local, state, and federal. These wanton acts of violence are part of a coordinated effort to eventually overthrow the United States government. It's well-funded and it's well-organized on social media. No Twitter warnings, by the way, from Jack Dorsey, even though they seek nothing short of an overthrow of all that we love and believe in, an elimination of our Constitution, basically all of our rights, including the Second Amendment and much of the First. They don't care about George Floyd. They're using and abusing his memory to create more suffering and more chaos. It's like one giant video game to some of these folks. But their call to duty is one of annihilation of the country that we all love. Now, where did this all come from? I was thinking about this today and talking to friends and down the road and in D.C. Where did it come from? Why is there so much hate? The American people and law enforcement officers are overwhelmingly good people. It goes way beyond anger over the tragedies of Floyd and Trayvon Martin and Philando Castile. The genesis of this seething hatred began decades ago at our universities, and it spread like a contagion into all levels of learning. Radical professors attacking the ideals of Western civilization, and it's only gotten worse. Yesterday, check this out, one professor at the University of Alabama provided a tutorial on Twitter about how to pull down national monuments. And guess what? The tweet by Professor Sarah Parsack is still up on Twitter. And Jack Dorsey claims Trump's tweets are encouraging violence? This woman is a professor, and she's getting paid with the tax dollars that the University of Alabama gets. And by the way, universities are teeming with America-hating indoctrinators like her. And not only will she not get fired for that, she'll probably get an award at the next faculty meeting. The finest colleges in the nation are producing America-hating agents provocateurs. Like this aggrieved Princeton and NYU law school grad, Collingford Mattis. He was allegedly behind the wheel of a tan minivan as his passenger, fellow attorney and Fordham Law School grad, Uraj Rahman, when she threw a Molotov cocktail into a police cruiser. Hateful, anti-American poison is also spewed in some of our churches as well. Who can forget Obama's pal, Reverend Jeremiah Wright's U.S. of KKK rant? But ultimately, this all comes from us, the people. How are we parenting our kids? Are we teaching them to love and respect everyone, no matter what race, no matter what ethnicity? Are fathers on the scene at all? Are we teaching our children to love or hate America? Are we teaching them basic right from wrong? Don't take anything that's not yours, even a penny. When we don't teach the light of God's love, we risk that our children and our country get sucked into the darkness eventually. And that's what you're seeing play out tonight. Now, I can't imagine that anyone with a brain or half of one would want to get mixed up with this crowd. Look at them. They're pretend privileged soldiers who would melt if forced to defend themselves. Ultimately, this is where strong leaders emerge to lead people away from the lawlessness, away from the darkness. Yet today, blue state mayors and governors have failed to act to contain the madness. Afraid to do so would be politically incorrect or somehow portray an alliance with President Trump. This is not about President Trump. This is about America, preserving her. And some media figures, by the way, have aided and abetted the chaos, portraying those driving the lawlessness as somehow justified in smashing, grabbing, pushing, beating, destroying, and yes, ultimately killing, they hope, the spirit of this country. They're portrayed like modern-day freedom riders. Violating curfews and taunting National Guardsmen should be celebrated, apparently, in some media outlets. These news anchors, that's what you want to call them, they're taking sides with anarchists. That's how much they hate President Trump and ultimately the old normal, as they seek to replace it with, I don't know what, some type of new normal that's going to be great, peachy keen. They're willing to have the country burn out of their obsession with removing Trump from office. Well, that's not going to happen. Americans are loving people, but they've had enough. They've had enough of lockdowns, and now they've had enough of lootings. It's time to defend our founding principles: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We do this with respect for our fellow man, with our love of God, and our belief in the inherent goodness of mankind. And that's the angle.